Hello, good afternoon, everybody. We are so thrilled to be here. I personally am excited because I know that you guys have been asking for this kind of content. How do I make ArtCore work in my classroom? How do I conference virtually? What am I even doing right now as a teacher in 2020? So I am excited about the presentation today. The conversation will be full of things that we feel you can walk away and start applying to your practice tomorrow. So enough of that. Let me introduce some of the folks on the screen that you're seeing. I know that you see my man, my right hand, my colleague, my guy, Mario on the screen. He's back to kick it with us today. And Mario's actually gonna introduce both of our guests.
So I am so thrilled to be back. I know we've gone on hiatus, or at least I have. So thank you guys for tuning in. And as all of us are, beginning the year, either with students or if you're a coach working with teachers, we're trying to figure out how to keep independent reading, partner reading, reading practice going, even though the challenges of the pandemic are real. So we appreciate the conversation that our guests are going to have with us today. The first guest that I'll introduce is Lindsay Green. She's one of our most amazing coaches. We are so lucky to have her as one of our ARC executive coaches. She hails from North Carolina, was a big part of the research that we conducted on the science of reading to make our materials and PD experiences even more relevant and better. And then also a lot of the conversations that I find most endearing is the problem solving that we often go through in making sure the multilingual learners are represented and at the center of planning of instruction. Her most amazing accomplishment most recently was becoming a mommy. So we want to shout out her little man there. And she's going to introduce us to our guest of honor today. Take it away, Lindsay.
Thanks, Mario. I'm going to take you on the road so you can introduce me everywhere. I am so excited to finally be a part of Facebook Live with the teacher, the extraordinary teacher I brought with me today. Kelly Dyson has taught in Guilford County Schools for 17 years. She has been at Pierce Elementary for the past 13 years. And I had the incredible opportunity to coach her as her art coach last year. And I knew I wanted her to be a part of Facebook Live because of how she and her teammates at Pierce create incredible reading and writing cultures in their classrooms. And so when the pandemic, came around and physical school was closed and Kelly had to transition into this remote space, I know that she felt this sense of like survival. We just need to survive. And when we talked this summer, she said, I don't want to just survive. I want my students and myself to really thrive in the fall. And that takes some planning. And so she wanted to create this reading culture in a remote world. So we are so excited, Kelly, for you to share today what you've done with some thought partnership with those at Pierce and outside of Pierce to build this virtual ecosystem that is building reading and a love for reading and writing in your classroom. So Kelly Dyson, take it away.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks, guys. I'm so excited to be here. One of my favorite things is to talk to teachers and to brainstorm and plan. And, Twitter and Facebook have, with American Reading Company, has been a great platform, but I'm missing the in-person stuff. So I've really been excited to do this and get to collaborate with everybody. But like Sherry and Lindsay both said, this has been hard for all of us. And so I think a lot of us have made it over the beginning parts of this, and there's initial challenges. And when we first talked this summer, I said, Lindsay, I don't know how I'm going to do this because I don't know how I'm going to do it yet. I don't know how to be successful in this. And so I came across this quote that said, I'm not converting this course. I can't take everything I've done that's been successful in the classroom and just flip it over and make it virtual. So it's really about transforming it. So when Lindsay and I first started talking, we wanted to come up with so what do we need to do to be successful? What do we know from the ARC research, from reading research, from those experts? We know that kids need to read and increase their volume of reading. So we knew that these 4 things needed to happen. How can I maximize their access to books, maximize the time they spend reading, maximize the support I can give them, and of course, maximize their love of reading. And so once we had those 4 things as kind of our cornerstones for what we were going to do, it was all about finding the ideas and making it work and searching out, those experts that we knew, and kind of thinking outside the box with it. And so I love to find ideas, and, I've been scouring different groups and different venues. And so we would love for you to share any ideas that have been successful or that you're excited to try that's going to do any of these things. So how are you getting your kids access to books? How are you making sure they're spending the time reading? How are you supporting them through conferences and IRLA and other resources? And then how are you sharing your own love of reading? So if you use those numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, I would love just a big list and lots of ideas that we could share together to keep it going, because we know some things don't work and we have to try new things. But my classroom library is my pride and joy, and it is the cornerstone of my room. And so not being able to give my students that to look at every day was really scary to me. So the first thing we talked about was access to books. So we try to flood our kids with the wide reading library, their, the anchor text, all the different libraries that they have access to, the media centers. So if you're remote or hybrid or virtual and you can't do that, how can we provide text for them? So the first thing I'm going to share with you, and you can have a copy of this. I think they're going to drop it in the chat. But how can these kids find books and text to read without you there being like, oh, I saw this book, I thought of you, or I think you'd really like this book. And then also, where can they find books? So first, let's look at the how to find the next book to read. And this is just some different lists and some different sites that they can use. Also sharing this with parents so they know. So one of my favorites is the website, What Should I Read Next? And so if you loved reading Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and that's what you have at home, and the parent doesn't know what to read next, or the kid doesn't have an idea, he just keeps reading, or she keeps reading Diary of a Wimpy Kid, you can type it in, find it, and then it's going to list similar books that other kids have recommended. And so it's just a great resource to get them to think of new ideas of books to read. So We Need Diverse Books has really grown, and they have some amazing lists. And this is actually like a list of lists. And so they're different categories, and then each category has other lists that will take you to some really great high quality books. And I know that American Reading Company put out the Black Lives Matter library this summer, and I'll refer back to that and have that as some of my ReadAlouds this fall, and it's a great resource as well. But this you can just use and keep somewhere on your website so that it's a one-stop shop, because just giving them one idea here and there, we really found in the spring that we needed to give the parents something that they could access in one place. And so this is one of the ways that we thought they could have a lot of different places to go to look for books.
Kelly, you brought up a really good challenge that I know we had talked about, which was, you said parents were getting a little frustrated in the spring when you would send them links to places and they would just have to either search their email or search your Canvas site for like the next place to go. So you really worked hard to bring it together on like this one platform that they could go to, and it would take them to lots of different places. So I think that's really powerful in how you listen to families and what challenges they were facing, and you kind of adapting what you wanted to do in a new way so that it was more friendly to not just your students, but also to their families who are such a part of this right now while we're in remote learning.
Yeah, we thought our biggest challenge as teachers was finding free resources. We found in the spring, the resources are there. It's just so much. And a lot of them just even requiring logins and passwords and sites outside of where they have to, where they need the support of somebody to log them in, that became overwhelming for them. And a lot of families, and mine included, you got frustrated because, you know, it would take you to a site and it was free, but I had to log in with this name here and that name here, or this is a class code here. So with the where to find text, this was, we want our kids still independently reading every day, no matter what. And so this was, if you don't have a book on hand, these are some places where you can read text on the computer, period. So, you know, the Guinness Book of World Records has a ton of kid-friendly articles, and they can search if they like Rubik's Cubes, if they like dogs, and they can sit there and they can read for 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, different articles, and it's free and it's straight to the site. It's not, you know, it doesn't take you to different places or make you log in. So these were just some ways that we had said that the kids could access the text right there from one location. And so some other ones, this Project Gutenberg is books that are not under copyright, and so they're free. And so, you know, there's some oldies but goodies there, like The Wizard of Oz, and, you know, some great family read-alouds that you guys could do, Little Women, just some great text, and they're free, and download them and read them, and that's great. I did include Overdrive because in most places that's your public library resource. I know through Guilford County they can use their school numbers, but for most places it's just your library card is all you need. And so I also included the ARC bookshelf because we know they'll have access to that either through Clever or through the login. And, you know, as Lindsay and I were looking through it, it was changing daily as far as the different texts that were offered. And so I think if you haven't already, go back into the ARC bookshelf and look around, because it's a whole new bookstore and there's so many more options of text to read. And so I think that having that on one, and then we talked about especially our younger kids needing to hear books read aloud to them, see the books, see the print in front of them, listen to them. So story time with Ryan and Craig, and also Storyline Online, are people reading really popular children's books, and they also show the text along with it so the kids can read along and hear good stories. So it's just a variety of different resources they can use. I also included our Media Center ebook resource. And so that's something that if you can have all that in one location, then the parents feel like, and the students feel like they know where to go when you're talking about it's time to read. And if I don't have something right now, I know somewhere to go. And so we, I have that to give if you want to use it. And it's also editable, so you can change it. And if you find stuff, and also these templates are great with Slides Mania. We used a lot in the spring with our research unit. So like we do bugs. And so you could have a different button be for each different bug to take you to different, you know, research places that they could go. So these templates are great. They're from Slides Mania. There's Slides Go and Slides Carnival. There's other places where it's going to save us teachers some time as far as getting ready.
Kelly, you just have to stop right there, because you don't even know what you just gave to our audience with the amount of resources and places to find text. Because, you know, if you're an ArcCore user and you have access to ARC Bookshelf, yes, you have hundreds of books available to you, but that might still not be enough. You know, you have kids who want more, and parents who want more. And so you're taking them to other places, other resources. I think it's really powerful that you've tapped into the public library, where almost every school or public school district across the nation can utilize Overdrive. You have utilized your media specialist with Destiny, and Miss McLam, shout out to her, curating books for you that kids can then get to. I think that that's huge, because, you know, with ARC, it's all about access to books, right? And so the more places you can go, the better. I'm thinking about our kids who may need to read and hear books in other languages. So I would also throw out there Unite for Literacy as a great site to go to. We obviously have a bilingual bookshelf, but another resource there would be the Unite for Literacy. So adding to our tool belts. This is awesome.
Yeah.
I want to shout you out too, Kelly, because part of your collection includes multicultural books and books on diversity. And so what that tells me is that you understand the need to center Black and brownness, right? To celebrate Black and brown skin and to hear those stories that are often marginalized. It reminds me of when I was a child, and though I learned to read, a lot of the books had protagonists that had white skin. And so I think it's super important, and I just want to shout you out for leveling the playing field and including multicultural books and diverse books in your collection. Way to go.
Thank you. And I know that the wide reading library has the best books for boys and the multicultural books. And so when I was trying to make that collection, I was thinking of what's in my wide reading library. And like you said, everybody should see their face and hear their voice in those books. So you had to find it in different places. So I know that I'm very excited for the Unite for Literacy to check that out. I like any new site to check out. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about was time spent reading. And this is hard for me because I know in my classroom, that's a priority. Everybody will read for 30 minutes. You will read a book that you can and want to read, and you will not be distracted. And it's one of the things that I love because I feel like no matter what, I know that we accomplish that. So not being able to have that interaction with them and physically see them doing that is really hard for me to kind of let go of. And I'd love to hear any ideas, are people doing independent reading live? Or, how are you dealing with that independent reading time and missing that connection with them? Because we're coming from a time where it used to be just read. And I hate that phrase. We're not just reading. It's the core of what we need to do during the day. So how do we continue at home to make that a priority and to help families understand that that's kind of, the crux of what we're doing is if we don't practice it, we don't get better at it.
That's so for the people listening, if you're an administrator or a teacher listening, either live or on the replay, please jot in ways and the ways that you're structuring independent reading, either synchronously or asynchronously, that you have found successful, so that anyone listening to this recording can benefit from maybe an idea that they haven't thought of. So thank you, Kelly, for throwing that question out to our listeners.
And so Lindsay, this is where she kind of came in and had some great ideas. We know the reading log and the steps. We want to continue that culture in our classroom. And so really thinking outside the box. And so Lindsay's going to tell us a little bit about that.
So I really wanted to focus on not the compliance part of a reading log, because that's not going to promote anyone to become an engaged reader. I really want us to think about what's the purpose of a reading log. So I want to see as a teacher what you're reading, right? What are you into? What's holding you for 30 minutes or more of reading? What's not holding you? Like in that log, when you only had 10 minutes of reading, what was it that you were reading? What genre? Was it the genre? Was it the interests? So I was thinking also about how reading logs really promote book talks and book recommendations to each other. So the first thing that came to my mind was a Flipgrid of how could we use Flipgrid to capture what we're reading and how long we're reading it for. So this is one of my ideas, and I made a demo. So thanks, Kelly.
Yeah.
Hi, Miss Dyson. I read Marshville Dreams by Ralph Fletcher, and I read for only about 20 minutes. That was as long as I could sustain my reading. And I read pages 1 through 16, which got me to
That just gives you a little idea. I love it.
Second chapter. So I've only read one chapter of this book.
Thank you for not making us live through the entire minute.
I love it.
But that was one option, thinking that, every kid could have an individual Flipgrid, or you could have a class Flipgrid and this would be a great way to make book recommendations to each other. But if we're really vulnerable and saying this is how long I read for, and this is why I only read for this long, you can start to get to know your students in a different way. The other solution, if Flipgrid doesn't seem like it's right for you, that a lot of my teachers in the past few weeks have really latched onto are our Microsoft or Google Forms. So taking our reading log and just putting it into a form and adding that to your Canvas site or your Schoology. and having the kids just every day, they know that's one of their assignments. They're going to go in, they're going to type what they read. And then teachers have gotten really creative with that. Like they've done the rating, like you read this book, do you give it, 1 out of 5 stars? And teachers have found it's really useful because it just populates into an Excel document. And as long as you have the kids put their name, you just resort that by their name. You're going to add up those minutes and put those steps right into school pace. So
I love that. Yeah.
some different ideas depending on what you're most comfortable with, but not getting caught up of like, I can't do this paper pencil. I don't want to have an editable PDF. Just, what's the point of the reading log? And how do I do that in a virtual space?
So I want to jump in right there. You both have mentioned the reading log multiple times. That's what we're talking about. And this is why it's included in the workbook that accompanies the School Pace Connect units. Because as a company, we know that we don't want the students to lose that reading stamina. So these are awesome ways to keep that going, to help students see, oh, my other friend in my class is reading this book, so maybe I might choose to read this book. So definitely keep those reading logs going.
And the workbook has it numbered, and I didn't know how much I needed that in my life. They were already numbered. Like it made my day. I was like, oh, this is perfect.
Little things.
I love it. It is. So we know that the conferences and our ability to connect with our students, that every minute is going to count at this point. So just talking about using the foundational toolkits and all the amazing resources that are now online, sharing our screen and allowing the kids to use it. But I know Mario was talking the other day about, these young learners who are just learning how to read and how much practice that we give them with their power goals and when they're learning sight words and stuff like that. And again, with the things that the templates that are already available to you. I mean, they would have so much fun if you taught them, about letter sounds or sight words. They can roll the dice and they can move the numbers. And so this is all about 2R. So they can answer these and they have the answers on the back. So any skill that you're teaching that they usually would practice afterwards in a center or a station, making some of these game boards or ways to practice those skills that they're learning. I think that they would really enjoy that, and it's a way that we can support them, but they can also do it independently.
Kelly, can I ask a quick question if someone's out there? So you use the Slides Mania, like, how you made that little card? Where'd you get that from? Like, how'd you know to ask that question?
Right, so I took, so that's from the foundational toolkit. I just went through it page by page, and so if they were practicing something and they were trying to identify words, and some of them had like little sentences on them. So I just took different lessons from the foundational kit and turned them into like questions that they could look at. So they were, I really thought a lot the sight words and especially those when they're in the phonics, as far as the power goals for that, they would let them do that a lot. So
perfect.
That's where I got them from. And I know there's recorded lessons now. And so like,
I think Mario was going to say that.
Play the game. Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. So it's like dangling candy in front of a child, right? I mean, the most delicious addition, in my perspective, that we've added to School Pace Connect is that for every single lesson, in all of the foundational skills toolkits, K5 English, Spanish, K2, K5 English, K2 Spanish, every lesson has been recorded. So you can watch an ARC coach or one of members of the ARC team in a video actually engaging in a lesson. So you could assign that synchronously, assign it asynchronously, or play it synchronously during instruction, and it'll show you how to practice a power goal. Probably one of the most important additions to School Pace Connect to make sure that students are growing as readers this year. Thank you for bringing that up, Callie. Appreciate it.
That, I mean, to us, even not even assigning it, but just seeing it, being able to watch it. If we're, I know that the 2B, the doubles, I'm always like, how do I teach this? And so I was like, I'm gonna go watch the video. So it's been awesome. So Lindsay, was there anything specific as far as the School Pace Resource Center that
No, I just wanted to highlight it because it is a newer addition right now, where a lot of us have gone into the Early Resource Center and the Neal Resource Center, but we haven't noticed school-paced resource center there. This is really helpful in our environment if we're overwhelmed by all the input we're getting from different places and things we have to remember, that it's like, how do I go back and put in those reading steps? Okay, I've started my virtual log. Now, how do I go put in those steps? Or how do I go and make sure I'm putting in my conference activity? So there is some good resources in the school-paced resource center just to be like, yep, a good little refresher. This is how I do it.
So this has already been a phenomenal conversation, and I'm sad we only have about 6 minutes left, but we will come back to this chat. Please ask your questions in the chat, and we will come back and engage you in the chat, but we want to make sure Kelly has at least enough time to finish up what she's prepared for us today.
Yes, I would love to talk more. So I think that this, of course, is the one that I could talk the most about, because at the end of the day, we want kids to love reading. And so, you know, Lindsay and I, when we were talking, we always went back to, no matter what happened in the spring, I knew that my daily read aloud was what my kids loved. It was what I loved. And so from March 16th until June 10th, that was the one thing that we had every day. So we didn't know how to use Canvas yet. We didn't know how to give an assignment. We all got kicked off of everything else. But I think that there's so much for kids to know and have ready, and it's so different. But having those times that are not high pressure, that you're just getting to know them and you're sharing a book with them. So they're not going to have to reply in a discussion board or write a summary, or we're just sharing a book together. And in our conversations right before and right after that read aloud were the best conversations that we had the whole time, because they were talking about what was happening with them and how they related to the book and how this was crazy and could you believe this. And so, you know, finding that time, and, you know, there's so many great books that are recorded out there, and I love using them because I still haven't figured out the whole, like, let me hold up a picture book and you can see it. But I wouldn't trade that time, me reading aloud to them live. And so even though maybe you couldn't make it every day, but that time with my kids in a time where we're talking about the social emotional health and how are we checking in with our kids and how do we know how they're feeling about stuff, you know, sharing books with them and having them get excited about them is just an easy way to do that. And I know that our media center, our media specialist, Heather McLam, is setting up First Chapter Fridays, where you can expose kids to different books that they might not have read, tease them with that first chapter and say, Miss McLam has it on hold at the media center. You can check it out for yourself. And she's trying to do a variety of ones that are in paper and then ones that are also available on the ebook. Connect with authors. They're in a pandemic too. In the spring, I was able to catch the author of The Miscalculations of Lightning Girl. We read The World Ends in April, and she Zoomed with us, and it was amazing. And my kids thought that was the coolest thing ever. I know that Miss F in Guilford County, I just saw like her, I can't remember her last name, but she's got the author of My Teacher is an Alien, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean, that's,
I'm going to be there sitting crisscross applesauce, tuned in.
I know, it's so awesome. So reach out social media to these authors because they're trying to connect with their readers too. They miss their readers too. So they're providing live YouTube events, things like that. So there's lots of different ways that they're looking to connect with their readers too. But I think that the more that you can read aloud and offer them that connection to those good stories, and you know, the same way that we do in our classrooms, to know that you know, those books are a safe space and it's a place for us to learn about each other, but also just to sit and enjoy a good story. So it's definitely been the easiest one to do.
Thank you. That was awesome, Kelly. That's one we could use this week.
Yes. So my folks that are in the chat right now, if there was something that you saw that you are really interested in adding to your style of teaching tomorrow, put it in the chat box. What are you thinking about using that you can take away from this conversation that you can apply tomorrow? I think we have some parting words from my homie, Mario. Mario, tell us what's on your mind.
So for middle school teachers, I know what you're thinking. Where are the foundational skills videos for my kids? We are also going to be recording lessons for middle school students. So we haven't forgotten you. Y para los maestros de programas de educación bilingüe, también compartiremos recursos para apoyar a la lectura independiente y con parejas en el chat box con recursos que hemos colectado. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm going to watch that on playback because I'm not quite sure I picked up that last thing that you said, but I'm going to watch it and I'll let you know. Just like what I want you guys to do, I want you to go back and rewatch this. All of our Facebook Lives are going to remain on our Facebook page so that you can go back and try to apply some of the practices that some of the teachers are sharing with you. Just as a reminder, we are going to be here only the first and the third Wednesdays of each month at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If there is a topic, if there is something that you're struggling with, email me, Facebook message me, let us know, and we'll make sure that that content comes on Facebook Live so that you can hear from another teacher just like you. Kelly, Lindsay, have any parting words for our friends?
No, just keep being awesome out there.
Awesome. And we will be adding, Kelly has offered her resources to share with you all. We will be adding these to the chat so that you can take a look at those. I think Mario also has added some ELL resources in the chat group as well. So as we say, every first and third Wednesday, I'll see you soon.
Adios.